Hey everybody, welcome to our first ever Security Spotlight by Google. Thank you so much for joining us. Your host today, myself, Marie Chidoli, and Roy D'Souza. We are both focused on Chronicle enablement within Google Cloud Security, and we have a special guest, Kyle Martinez. Thanks so much for joining us today, Kyle. We are going to be recording this, so feel free to take a look later on. Also, we have a chat for any questions. We'll definitely make sure we get to the questions at the end, and anything that we do not reach, we will welcome you to follow up in the community later on. Otherwise, I'm based out of New York City. I got my start in tech working as a network admin many years ago. I've been in security for probably about a decade almost. And I've always had a heavy focus on product implementations and support, and that's what brings us to today.
Yeah, thanks, Marie, and yeah, welcome to everyone. Myself, I'm coming to you live from Stockholm on the other side. And this is where I've worked almost a decade in all things process and project planning, because I'm an engineer in my background, and security is an area that is the latest and perhaps most exciting area that I'm discovering today. So super glad to be here. Super awesome to welcome all of you to the Security Spotlight. And what do we mean by that? Well, in a nutshell, this is going to be a recurring online event that gives you deep insights into the world of Google security operations, and the format is a webcast. It is part of our enablement efforts for our amazing security community, which all of you are part of, to engage more directly with us. This community will also be the place where we gain inspiration for future series and future events that are going to come, future episodes of this series. And we want all of you to tell us what is most important to you, and that's what we're going to cover. But of course, this is not all. Marie, you've got some more to share about the series, right?
Just a bit. Yeah, so our whole goal is to bring more knowledge your way. We know there are definitely some content gaps, and Roy and I have been brainstorming, working very hard to find a way to bring you guys as much information as possible and help y'all learn everything you can about Chronicle. That's what helped us develop the Security Spotlight series. Our plan is to really go hard on helping everyone here understand as much as possible about Chronicle SIEM and SOAR. The first several episodes, our goal is to put you in front of our Chronicle engineers directly and let them share as much knowledge as they can. We're gathering as many hot topics from you guys. We want to hear what you have to say in the community, and directly from interactions we have on a day-to-day basis. Eventually, our goal is actually to welcome some of the extra active members of our community, whether you're a customer or a partner. We would eventually love to welcome you onto the Security Spotlight, have you discuss what you think would be most relevant to share with the world based on your experiences. And I think it could be a really neat opportunity. So more to come on that. This will be a monthly series. We are going to skip December because of the holidays. We want to make sure everyone has enough time to spend with their friends and family, or just enjoy the end of the year. And from there, we'll pick things back up in January. There will be tons of information highlighting what you can look forward to on the events page of the SecOps community space. I think that's most of what I have on the background of the Security Spotlight. Otherwise, we have Kyle Martinez here. I've been working with Kyle for many years. We should feel a little bad for him. He's had to talk to me a lot. Kyle, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Marie. So like Marie said, my name is Kyle Martinez. I'm a technical solutions engineer in professional services, working with Chronicle SOAR. I've been using different SOAR technologies since about 2017. I think that's been the bulk of my career. Worked in a large hospital system, worked at a large bank, Worked at a small startup company, and then I also worked at Simplify when it was just on standalone before Google acquired it. So a bunch of experience in SOAR. It's just a lot of fun, and I haven't left.
Amazing. Thanks, Carl. I mean, how amazing is that? Super happy to have you with us today. Just to put you in the spotlight a little bit before we start the series, can you tell us a little bit about what excites you most about presenting to an audience such as ours, and why is this series so important?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think back to young Kyle when I was in my first SOC role, and I was working with my first SOAR platform. Received great on-demand training, great documentation, and it made me very proficient. But it wasn't until I spent a week with someone from professional services from that SOAR platform where I really started to like learn it and pick it up. He was able to show me the art of the possible on a lot of different things, and it really leveled me up as a SOAR engineer. So I think this Spotlight series is a great way for people to access the breadth and knowledge of professional services who are with different customers, different organizations all the time, and seeing the best practices with it. And this is how we can kind of bring that to the community to share when you may not have time to have a professional service engagement or it wasn't included in the budget.
Awesome.
Wow. That was a great answer. I do not think I could have given such a nice and professional answer on that. Nice. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what we have in store today? What's on the agenda?
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about views. Me personally, I think it's a very important topic that doesn't get as much attention as it should. It is somewhat of a newer-ish in the last couple of year feature in Chronicle SOAR. So there's going to be a lot of cool things that we're going to show you. I have a slide deck that's just going to kind of go over views, and then we're going to jump into a live demo and build a simple view.
We all love presentations and slide decks. I am so thrilled that you put that together for us. Thank you so much, Kyle. I'm super stoked to hear what you have to say. Views are definitely key in understanding what's going on. It'll be helpful for everyone tuning in today. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Again, we will have Q&A at the end. Please feel free to share any questions in chat. We're going to try to get to as many questions as we can. We're going to keep the questions as closely relevant to the topic as possible. But if we do not get to your question, please, again, feel free to follow up in the community. We have a ton of active members in the community. We really want to start pushing as many folks there as possible. And we love to see more people get as involved as possible. And again, the more involved you are, you might have a shot at coming on and, being under the security spotlight. So I guess let's go ahead and get started, Kyle.
Sure thing. All right, so you should be able to see my slide deck. So like I said, today we're going to talk about dynamic views in Chronicle SOAR. So like I said, we're going to go over just a brief introduction, maybe 10 or so slides. Then we'll jump into the platform and we'll build out a demo, or build out a view itself. And then we'll take your questions at the end. So first, what's a view? So there are two different types. There's the case view and the alert view, and they're essentially what defines the content and the format of the overview page when you're viewing a case or alert. And the overview page is, if you look at the screenshot right now, highlighted is the tab. So that's bringing us to the alert overview versus the case overview, which is the little folder. So views are made up of widgets, which can be out of the box, predefined from a playbook action, or something custom that you develop. Views also allow us to modify what individual users can see based on their role within the platform and the specific alert in question. So essentially meaning that depending on their SOC role, we can show them different information. A tier 1, 2, or 3 analyst might want to see something different than your CISO or your SOC manager may want a more high-level view rather than the details that your SOC tier would be interested in. So that brings us to the next question. What's a widget? So widgets are essentially tiles in the view. They're going to be what holds that data. Tiles can be, or widgets can be, a third of the width, half the width, 2/3 of the width, or the full width of the screen. And we'll talk about what each of those widgets are. So this set of widget is exclusive to the case overview. So some of these, I actually don't think any of these are available in the alert overview, and it kind of makes sense. With the alerts widgets, it's essentially going to display some summary information about all the different alerts that are grouped into this case, like the name, the number of events, and the priority that it is. There's also a case description, which allows you to write a unique description for each of the case, whether that's a summary of what's happening or summary of your investigation. We can also display the latest casewell activity, as well as recommendations based on similar cases. We can recommend the analysts and tags to assign to it. And then we can also display statistics based on the distribution of entity fields. Now, some of these elements are available still on the case overview view, but primarily these are going to be what an alert view is going to be made up of. So we have the JSON result. This is very similar to just an action that runs, but we're just going to take that JSON result and show it to you on our JSON Explorer. So it makes it very easy to read rather than going to the case wall, grabbing the huge JSON payload and putting it into your favorite text editor. You can just do that all on the platform. Entity highlights, those are very important. You obviously want to see the objects of interest that are involved in the alert. Pending actions, in my opinion, should always be at the top of the list. Yeah, it's very important to know what the analyst needs to do in terms of where we're at in the playbook execution. Entities graph is another great one. It's the visual relationship between all the different entities. We can do that at the case level, which will, glue together a picture of all the different alerts, or at the alert level where it's just singled onto that single alert. Key value pairs, or key values rather, this is a really nice widget where you can define a set of key values, the keys being, whatever statically typed, label you want to give it. And you can have the value be really anything from our placeholders, whether that's case information, alert information, playbook actions, just really whatever. We also have a free text field, which is exactly as it sounds. It's just a text box that you can still leverage our placeholders in and make some dynamic scripting. And then the events table. This is important to note that this is only available for the alerts. Since our alerts are made up of different events, we want to be able to view those events. So we can create a table with up to 6 elements where we can highlight different pieces of the alert data, or I'm sorry, the event data. And then insights. Insights are kind of like the old school views where we're able to kind of grab some summary information from our actions and display them into the UI. All right, so we talked about the widgets, but we didn't talk about the different types. So the predefined widgets are first up. So some integration actions have specific widgets that can be added to the playbook view that are predefined out of the box. So they appear on a separate tab in the view builder. So if you look in the top right icon, you see the general and the predefined. General being the things we just talked about, and predefined being if there's an action that's implemented inside of the playbook, you'll see the associated predefined views. The best thing about these is they speed up the workflow because it reduces the time to build using the views from the common integrations. So instead of making your own virus total widget that displays a lot of information, you may be able to take advantage of ours. I think virus total is probably my favorite widget. They do a really good job of getting a lot of good summary information and making it all very usable. And then if you were to ask, like, how do I know if an action has a predefined widget? You'll see this icon next to the predefined in the step selection. And we'll show you that in our demo. So an honorable mention to the HTML widget. I'd say this is probably the most powerful widget out there because you have the full power of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript available. So you can bring in different pieces of data and really play with that. Make really fancy tables. You can make maps, bunch of different ways to display the information in a meaningful way. A couple features that this one has is we do have safe HTML rendering. So if we toggle this on, it'll prevent JavaScript from loading and the script tags from being rendered. So very important if you're doing like a phishing use case and you want to render the email. Obviously, you don't want those JavaScript scripts to run. And then we also have a condition on this one where we can decide whether we display this widget or not. So we can look to see if the action ran or if it was successful. And if it was, we display the widget. If it was not, we don't display the widget. So why should we use views? Well, so if you want different alert types to display different information based on the specific use case. So what that essentially means is if you have like a malware use case, malware playbook, you will want to, display some information around, the user, the host, the offending hash, the file path, and some context around the score from your, enrichment sources like VirusTotal. But you may want to surface different information if it's like an identity related alert. You would be interested in learning a little bit more about the user, maybe where they're logging in from, the IP addresses, the geolocation, and the last time they changed their password. Another reason is to use the RBAC of SOAR data. This goes back to the role-based, the SOC role-based view. So we can choose to give a different view to their analyst than our CISO. One thing to note here, though, this is not going to remove that data completely from them. They can still go in the case wall and still see that data. So this shouldn't be used to say that SOC analysts cannot see this data. It's just the ease of use to see that data. And then most importantly, the number one reason why I think we should use views is it speeds up the workflow by reducing the time it takes to determine the value of information. It helps you differentiate the noise because you can see right up in front and center what needs to be done with the data here. And I think this is our last slide. So how do views work? So there's default views, which are automatically displayed when the case is created. We'll now show you where we can kind of define that. And then when a playbook is attached to an alert, if there's an associated view with the playbook, the view will be displayed once the playbook is attached. And it's very important to note, only the first view is attached to the alert whenever it's displayed. If you have subsequent playbooks that run, it's still going to be the first playbook with the first view that's ran or that's attached to it. All right, time for a demo. So first I want to highlight where we can make the default views. We're going to spend maybe a minute in here, and we're going to spend the rest of our time building an alert view. So if we go to the settings and click on views, this is where we can define our case view and our default alert view. So if we go into general here, you'll see the different widgets that we can add to our view, and it's as simple as dragging and dropping. Simply click on gear to bring up the different parameters, such as the title, description. Certain widgets are at a fixed width, but some of them you can change. And then some things like the latest wall activity will have different parameters, such as how far you want to look back. So do you want the latest activity from the last 24 hours, 72, or last week? And you can choose different wall item types here. So if we pivot to the default alert view, you'll see that our generals widgets are a little different, a little smaller set, but these are the ones that we can use inside of the alert view. We won't spend too much time on here because we're going to build one in a playbook. So to kind of set the stage of the alert that we're building, I have two things. So I have a very simple basic playbook. Didn't want to make anything too complicated because I really want to focus on the actual view aspect of this. Just a quick review here. I put a dummy trigger in here because I want to control when this triggers. I don't want it just to start running on things that get ingested. I have 3 VirusTotal actions running in parallel. Then we'll prompt the analyst just to simply review the details of the alert and decide if it's a true positive or false positive. If it goes down the false positive route, we'll put a case comment stating it's a false positive. Then we'll tag it as such, and then we'll close the alert. If it's a true positive, we're essentially going to do the same thing where we add the case comment, assign a true positive tag. But instead of creating alert in our SOC process, we're going to say we need to send a ticket to ServiceNow to the support group to reimage the host. So now I have a sample alert that came in. So this is essentially no playbook has been run yet. This is the default view that we just kind of quickly looked over. So we see we have a lot of good information. It's a lot of information, but it's all good stuff. But I want to surface the meaningful information. So first, let me run our basic playbook. Should I take a moment? There we go. As you can see, I have my prompt that I need to check for this to be a true positive or false positive. I'm going to send it down the true positive route just for demonstration purposes. So now my playbook is continuing to execute. You'll see that we've made the case comment, we've made the tag, and now we're creating the ticket. Perfect. So now that this playbook is done, I can see a few different things changed in my view. So part of the default view is we had insight cards. So whenever VirusTotal executes, the action itself has the option to add insight cards. So we have this is kind of like the old school flavor of views. And if we need to look more in depth at our VirusTotal action, like check out the payload and stuff, we need to go through the case wall here, try to find it. And then the JSON, VirusTotal gives a lot of data back, so we have to download it to investigate it rather than view it here. I mean, which is all good stuff. The data is there, but it's not as present as it can be to make the analyst not have to sort through here. If they wanted to validate the ServiceNow ticket number, they'd have to go through here, find the ticket number. And if they're interested in like, what was the short description? I want to make sure it rendered right. I'd have to, Control F, Command F, and search for a short description to find it. Or we can create a view and surface this information for us. So what we'll do here is we'll go to our playbook. In the top right corner, we have an option to add a view. We're going to name this analyst view. And then we're going to give it to the administrator just because I'm an admin in the system. And we'll give it to tiers 1 through 3. And then we're going to check, yes, I want to include all the predefined widgets because I know VirusTotal has those. Actually, before I do that, I promised you I would show you the little icon so I know that there's a predefined widget here. So if I just simply go to VirusTotal, I can see that the enrich hash has this little icon here. So I know there's that predefined widget. All right, so this is a very similar screen as to the default views. So let's start building out a view. So for me, I always want to make sure I have the pending actions right up top and center. So I'm going to do that. I have my predefined views. So if there's a hash, it's going to display. If there's an IP, it's going to display. If there's a URL, it's going to display it. I'm going to add some valuable widgets that just come out of the box with Chronicle SOAR. So we're going to add the entities graph here. So we have a good visualization of what's going on here. And just so it's not all super cluttered, we'll make that 50%. Drop it right there. And then we're also going to give it entity highlights. Those are also very important. Actually, I'm going to put it right up here, that 50%. Cool, that looks good to me. So now I'm going to add some information about the event. So I have the events table here. Drop it right there. And I'm going to define a few different fields here. So this is going to be, what's important based on the context of the alert. So whenever I build playbooks and especially views, I like to pivot a lot to the alert. So I'm going to flip back and forth quite a few times. I'm going to open my alert tab, go to the events, and then I'm going to view more details. So this is going to be all the event data. So I'm going to pick out some fields here that I think are going to be important. So for starters, I want to understand, the username, the email, and maybe the last password change. So what I can do here is just search for user ID. Great, I got the principal user ID. I'm just going to copy this so I don't misspell anything live. I'm going to name this, I guess, row column username. And then I'm going to use my placeholder buttons, similar to the same one that you see in playbooks. And you notice that since this is an event table, I only have access to the event placeholder. So I'll just pop in my event principal user ID. And there we go. So we'll do the same thing for email. Grab that guy. Last password change. I think I probably just search for it in here. I'm not sure if it's a principal target, so I'll just verify. It is principal. Now we're going to add some information about the host. So we want the host name. Now this is a file executing, so we'll go ahead and grab the file path, and then we'll get the SHA-256. So let's pivot back over here. Let's see if we have a host name. Perfect. Should be a file path over here. Try full path. There we go. And then last but not least, the SHA-256. Perfect. So now the last one I want to add here is a key value pair. And what I'm interested in putting in here, I'm gonna make it a little smaller because it's not, doesn't need to be huge, is I want the service now details. So I'm gonna name it the title as such. All right, and I gave it a quick description, just simply stating this widget will display details of if a snow ticket was created. And I'm gonna add the ticket number. We'll see what the short description is. And then we'll put time created. So now, as you can see in the key value pair, I have access to all my placeholders. So this is a little bit more dynamic than the events table, but I'll show you the cool difference whenever we render this view. So since I'm interested in the action of result of an action, I'll go down to playbooks. I see here's my JSON result. I'll pull up our expression builder. And first thing I wanted to look at was the ticket number. So I think it's just number in here. Yep. So we have that correct expression in there. Do the same thing for short description. And then I think this field is going to be opened at. So let's look there. There we go. Cool. So we built a simple view in like 5-ish minutes. So let's go ahead and save it. close out of here. Now we'll re-ingest this same alert as a test case. We'll run the new playbook on it, and then we'll compare the differences. Just making sure I saved. Cool, so we're at the decision-making point. So let's pivot over, and if we were to work this case like an analyst, we'd have this information before we would answer that multiple choice question. So one of the first things you'll notice is our event table here. The nice thing I like about this table, and this is different behavior than the key value pairs, is that it's going to have a row for every event that you have. So this alert has 6 events. You'll have the row items for each 6 events. They're all very similar in this one, which makes sense for this use case. But the also nice thing here is if it was extracted as an entity, you'll have the entity inside here. So it's clickable, and we can pivot over to the Entity Explorer to check out more details around that entity. Next, you'll see, since we had a hash here, our virus total enrichment widget rendered. So it does a great job of summarizing a lot of information from virus total without going to virus total, such as seeing what scanners had what kind of determination on it, different hash properties, other different properties about this, and then we could also pivot to the full report by clicking that button there. The other cool thing I like about this one is that we can go through the different IOCs, but if you did have multiple hashes, or if this was a URL, or if this is an IP address, you'd see the different results here, and you can pivot through those very, very quickly and simply. As you can see, we have our entity highlights and our entity graph here. It's great because we put them there. But the thing I wanted to call out was that the ServiceNow ticket information. They're just dashes. That's because whenever the view gets attached to the alert, it happens whenever the playbook gets attached initially. So because we haven't ran ServiceNow yet, we're not going to have any information to put in the ServiceNow widget. So let's go ahead and complete this playbook. We'll say it's a true positive so that we do get action here. So go, and there we go. So we pivot back to the overview. Now you can see very quickly, here's our ServiceNow ticket number. Looks like my description came across correctly. And if I wanted to put assignment groups and things like that, this is a great way to check the analyst validate that the ticket made its way to the correct group with the correct description. So that's about it as far as what I wanted to share on this view. But I do, since we have a little bit more time, I wanted to share a really more complex view on a different playbook. So we have, phishing is a huge use case for every organization, but it's also a very popular use case in SOAR. So we have an email playbook that we like to use that does a lot of stuff. We only see 22 steps here, but each of these green blocks has 20 plus steps in them. So, and this, I think, is all kind of out of the box with power-ups. We're not using any kind of integrations, but and I'm not going to drain the whole description of this playbook, but essentially we're taking an email message, we're parsing it out for different IOCs and doing a lot of different scoring mechanisms in here to create a lot of context for the analyst. And with a lot of context, as you can see through here, there's a lot of stuff on the case wall. So trying to find a specific element might be difficult. So we created a view around it. We have a nice email summary, which is just going to be your traditional header fields, subject, message ID, date, who's it from, who's it to, etc. We have an alert scoring block here. This is using the HTML widget. So we were able to use our placeholder, and someone much smarter than me was able to build this out so we can render our scores, which I'll show you in a moment. Pending actions, good call there. This one I think is a really cool one where we look at the different SMTP relay routes and we can table those as well as integrate with Google Maps, so you can actually visually see where all these hops are taking place. I think one of the most useful pieces of this is the HTML body. So part of one of our actions here is we can take the HTML body and sanitize it, and then just display the script result, which is essentially the HTML. And all you have to do is simply plug this into the HTML widget, and we can render that on screen. So let's take a quick look and see what that looks like. It's a very long case wall. So we see our email summary. I have a good context into the subject, when it was sent, who is from, who is to. Here's our alert severity. So this one's a high based on all these different steps. Any kind of like file category risk, we place here. Header analysis risk, we place here. Again, giving you a lot of good context rather than going to that really long case wall trying to find that data. This didn't load correctly because I don't have a working API key. But once you have a working API key, you'll see the different routes here kind of displayed on the map. And then my favorite part for the phishing use case is the rendering of the actual email. So instead of downloading it, putting in a sandbox, what have you, you can see the context of the email right here. And then I think that's about it. There's still more insight cards, but as you can see, and I think the reason why we wanted to have the view functionality in here is all the data is there, it just doesn't look that good. You can't get it to look any better. So like I said, these are kind of like the version 1 of views, and the new views and playbooks are much better and much easier to use and read from. Okay, I think that is all that I have. Let's just double check the slides. All right, so I think we're ready for Q&A. Go ahead and hide these.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kyle. I've got to say, I feel like I know a lot more about what I'm looking at, and I feel like I can look at things a whole lot more clearly. Hopefully, everyone
that was amazing. Thanks, Kyle.
Of course.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I think we might have a couple of questions, not too many. So let's see what we've got. Kyle, do you want to go ahead and take a stab?
Sure. So first question, will Google allow the JSON output to be viewable within Chronicle in the future? So yes, it's actually in the present. So there's a couple of ways to view the JSON output. That would be through that case wall, where you can see just the direct JSON output. Or actually, let me share my screen out really quick. Or if you use the JSON viewer widget, you can see the JSON results like we have down here. Did forget to show this one, but this is what you would find out of the action run. So this one's based on an email, but if you had an EDR, get device info or something like that, get user information from Active Directory, you can display that all right there. Makes it a lot easier than searching the case wall. So the next question, does Chronicle also work with other ticketing systems like Zendesk and Jira? Yes, so we are technically SIM agnostic. We're not really tied to any tool. As long as there's an integration available in our marketplace, we can initially integrate with it. But with our integrations, they're all Python based. So as long as there's an API available, we can very likely hook up to it.
I think we got a couple more while you were speaking, Kyle.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see what we have. So I'm not going to be the best person to answer this one, so we might have to table it unless someone else on the call knows. But with the new unified perspective, is SIM and SOAR included in a single purchase? I think it's able to be, but I'm not on the sales side, so I don't think I'm the best to answer it.
If it's not, it's definitely going in that direction, but I'm pretty sure that any account manager would be able to help out. Oh.
Yes, and one more, Kyle, so we can.
Yeah, so in the phishing example, can you see the email headers? So in my example, no, but they are available through that JSON payload. So if you wanted to display certain header pieces, you can absolutely do so with the key value widget or an HTML widget if you want to loop through the whole JSON structure and display whatever you want in a way you would want.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kyle. I'm gonna wait maybe 5 more seconds if anyone wants to ask another one, but otherwise, Kyle, thank you so much for your time today. You've been awesome. I hope the audience has seen how awesome you are because we learned a ton. And yeah,
Yeah.
with that, I think Marie, this is the end of our first spotlight
This is
series.
the end of our first spotlight. I feel like, I'm going to get a little emotional here, but I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who was able to put aside a little bit of time in their day to come check out what we have to say. Again, I'm going to shamelessly plug the community. Please check out the SecOps community space. It is something that, we've recently launched into the Google Cloud community back in September. We really want to make it something special, but we need all of your help to get in there, get active, really make people excited about going to the community. And the more activity we see going on, the more likely it is we'll be able to come reach out to you and ask you to come join us for this new Security Spotlight series. It would be really cool to be on a Google webcast.
Yeah, and I mean that's how you're going to hear from more people like Kyle, because you're going to get all that goodness delivered straight to you once a month, and it's also a place and a forum where you can actually interact with people like Kyle more directly as well, so you can ask questions directly. We're super stoked. I think there's a lot of good things coming, and hopefully you enjoyed today.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody. Until next time, have a great one.
Thanks, everyone.